And his background noise.
And we're live.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Beyer from GAI Insights, and welcome to our daily Gen AI news briefing, where we discuss and rate top news items. Our team of AI analysts rate each article as essential, important, or optional. Today's briefing is sponsored by GAI Insights. We're excited to announce that tomorrow we will have a guest rater, Conan Brennan. Today's discussion will be led by David.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everybody. We have a bunch of articles today. I would say we've got a couple strong ones, a couple that will probably blow through kind of quickly. We will start with one. This obviously isn't new news, but we haven't talked about it yet, and we promised that we would. And this is regarding the app mention feature that is now available in ChatGPT, where you can just be in your general chat area and call up a custom GPT to do a specialized function that it's been programmed for. And Tim, since you reminded us to talk about this, I thought we could go to you first.
Yeah, so it's not that old. It was just Sunday, I think it was announced. This is the way you can both search GPTs relatively easily. So GPTs are these custom elements. You can make your own GPT, your own ChatGPT effectively, using only text prompts in ChatGPT. So a little bit of chasing your tail recursion. But it's pretty popular already. There's lots of them out there. And what they've done here is added a simple, what we techno nerds call orchestration capability. So the problem you have now is there's hundreds of these GPTs out there that you might want to use, little tiny custom things. But how do you put them all together? And up until now, you can't. You've had to use them separately. And so that's a little painful. So now, if you type the symbol @ like the email symbol, you will get a list of all the custom GPTs, and you can click on one and effectively bring it in and make it part of your conversation. So this, if you're a programmer, this is similar to what LangChain would do, or Zapier or something like that. So the simplest thing is you can now create a little workflow, but it's a little better than that because it also is smart enough to sort of read the context and begin to understand which little GPT should do what. So you don't actually have to even necessarily tell it, oh, use this GPT for math and this GPT for understanding this corpus of documents, et cetera. It's very new. GPTs themselves are only a tiny amount of the traffic of OpenAI. So I think this is optional for readers right now. Good read over the weekend if you have time, just to make sure you're aware of this. I believe this is the future, but the future could be 6 months or 5 years, and that's a big difference. So it's one of those things you have to keep your eye on, but not something I think of immediate interest to enterprises, especially given how, to use a technical term, a little bit flaky these GPTs have been at spitting out information in their instructions. So it's a lot of concern about using these things in environments where there's sensitive data or proprietary information. But I think this is the future, but unclear how long it will take.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree it's optional, but I think in a weird way, these things are essentially implementing object-oriented programming in a more open environment, right? You're doing function calls, you're returning, and I think the real power here is that there's good common sense and also economic theory that says when you take something that was a big hairball of capability and you make it modular, Lego-like, the value and innovation, the value creation and innovation explodes, just like it did with apps on the phone. So I think architecturally it's really interesting. The article itself is optional.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'll go more.
Go ahead.
If you guys want to keep discussing optional, you're welcome to. I think it's important. This is really the birth of agentic systems from OpenAI. The fact that you can chat with ChatGPT, you can use multimodal, you can do data analysis and then say, sweet, let's ship this to Canva. Awesome, now let's ship this to 11 labs. Right, this is incredible technology that they're stitching together here. And it's important people understand what capabilities are starting to become possible because they've added this.
Yeah,
I could go with that.
I'm thinking that we should rate is as important, because I agree with John. It's a first step, granted, it's not a big user base, but it's a first step in modularization, if you will, of the ChatGPT that wasn't possible before. So I feel that we should flag it. Granted, it's not everywhere and it's not really yet mature, but I think it's important.
Yes,
I can go with important. Yep.
I agree. I think we'll go important on this one. And actually, this was why I'm going to bring up that rabbit again that you guys make fun of me. That's the reason why I thought that was interesting, not because I think that particular product is going to make it, but because it enabled that kind of next step in interaction and being able to call up different agents, which is what this does too. But of course, this tool is much better.
Yep.
So we
And I
will.
will second what Adam said. This is to John's point. Object-oriented programming, one of the reasons we worked on it so hard was to be able to create agent-based programming. That was always the goal, was to create agents.
All right, we'll go with important. I've taken over the screen sharing because I think Ankaj was having some technical difficulties, so I'll try to go in order the best I can. The next article is about the FCC proposing a ban on robocalls. Sure, they were a bit rattled by the one that happened in New Hampshire, where somebody issued calls that sounded like Joe Biden saying, "Don't go vote in the primary." So this proposal has come up. And Luda, what was your thoughts on this one?
For our audience, I'm not sure that's probably optional. However, generally, this is another indication of maturing of a very exciting technology that can do those things actually and be real. So in that sense, generically, I think it's important. So I'm not sure, when I read the announcement, it just says proposes. But in fact, the first announcement was in November, and going on FCC site and reading the announcement, they have a coalition of most of the states actually, and memorandum of understanding to combat this technology. I think the word proposes is just because they don't have the tools to deal with it fully. So that's why it's a flag saying we're going to do it. We are working on the tools and it's coming. So I think it's pretty strong indication that this will happen. And so maybe we flag it as important, but I'm open to other people's opinions.
Any thoughts?
I think it's optional for our audience. I think it scares a lot of people just in the sense of it, of this cloning and deep fakes and things like that. But for our audience and the typical executive, I don't really think it's important.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too.
Yeah.
That's why I was vacillating here.
All right, so we will go with optional. It is good to see the government doing something.
Okay.
Next article is around some announcements of community health systems doing a migration to the cloud, working on generative AI. I found this to be one of those announcements that I was scratching my head at a little bit. It didn't really feel like it warranted announcement, but maybe I missed something. I originally assigned this to Tanya. I forgot that she was not here today, so I will just open the floor to whoever wants to comment.
Well, I'll say something since I have a background in this stuff for a long time. So you're right. This is really a Barney burger, as Paul likes to call it, to a certain extent. This is really a PR thing for Google and CHS. CHS is a big hospital system, and they have moved all of their data into Google's medical cloud, for lack of a better way to put it. And that's a good thing for them. And they're talking about how wonderful it'll be to make it easier to share data. which is always a challenge in healthcare environments. There really isn't any generative AI in use. They talked about what they would use generative AI for. So it's important in the trend category, I would say, in healthcare, because it's following other things we've seen, like the Epic announcement of integration of the Nuance DAX product for capturing conversations between clinicians and patients and automatically generating a draft note. Those things are going to become more and more common. And I hope fervently that will really reduce the administrative burden on healthcare providers in the US, which is a real problem. But this is optional, big time.
Agree.
Okay, Akash, did you want to take the screen back over? It looks like you're back up online. Oh, maybe he's offline again. Okay, I will take the screen back over. It is, I do see that it's kicking us out like periodically today. There must be having some kind of issue here. Technology. Okay, next we're going to announcement from Synthesia, which is a company that has been providing avatar-based video creation. I was impressed. I didn't realize that they have half of the Fortune 100 as customers as I read this, and now they are launching text to video, and it's a lot more simple to use than it used to be. And Adam, I figured coming off of your recent presentation on our learning lab where you schooled us on going image to video, that we would, well, actually we did go text to video, but with less steps than what you'll have to use here. So tell me about this, and did you use it yet?
No, it's a paid service. I haven't had a chance to experiment with it. So I don't know. I would consider this news optional, frankly. The reality is they already had this capability. They've just made it more convenient. In the past, you had to write your script, then set up the layout of the video, choose the avatar, the language, all that sort of stuff. Now what they've done is they've just packed that into like templates, right? So you still have to write your script. Now they're even trying to diminish it. They say, all you have to do is provide the source material. I guess if the LLM can write the script for you, that's great, but you still need the source material either way. You just don't need an AI to write the script for you. This will do it all in one package. So they're making it a smoother process, but there's a half dozen competitors. They're just making it a little bit easier by making templates available. I don't think it's much to comment on.
Agree.
I was on mute. I have
Nothing burger from Paul.
Paul, you're gonna have to animate that nothing burger.
I haven't had a chance to check this out either. Is it the same as HeyGen, where it's strictly you're making videos of avatars, or are you able to make other types of videos with different like cinematography in it?
Not clear to me. Yeah. And that's interesting. A lot of these products, they have some sort of free to play sort of option so people can get into them. And I was thinking maybe with so many of the Fortune 100 already on the hook, they don't need to, right? They're kind of locking in their market.
Yeah, I guess
so.
So.
The question I always like to ask, having been at a startup, many startup companies, is how many paying customers in the Fortune 100 do they have? Because a lot of these companies will give away anything to a large company. So they could have half the Fortune 100, but nobody's paying any money.
Yeah.
Easy to get. Free is a good price for most corporations.
This is true. All right, we will go optional, and we will move on to our next article. This is Dynatrace, who has historically provided some observability solutions and is now providing it for generative AI systems. I can't see who I assigned this one to, so I will trust whoever I...
You assigned it to me, David. Okay. Nothing burger product. Observability is important, monitoring is important, but this is a nothing burger announcement.
You know what? When I read this, I immediately had a thought about the slowness and how this will eat up a lot of resources. If you look at every call and how the performance and executive function at each step, essentially, I don't know. It is a load on the performance of the system. Just a note.
Who are the competitors with observability in the generative AI space right now? Do we have a good sense of that?
There aren't that many right now. They put a list, in fact, at the bottom of this article. But this is a new area. In fact, I have a son who's an expert in security.
Yeah, it says includes players like Monte Carlo, ARISE, Context AI, Weights and Biases, and Datadog. So it's pretty.
The Context AI I was aware of. Yeah, but they will have to make it in such a way that they observe the performance of the system, but do not put a significant load on it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Yep. And it'll take some time. I think this is a critical area as a trend, because as people go into production, they're going to need tools to do this. But as we found when we started putting large systems into production into AWS and Azure and other environments, you have this trade-off of you need observability, but you can't burden the system so much that the latency is unacceptable. So tools like Splunk came along, and now there's a million tools that you can use that do very good observability at very low load. And that's what we're going to have to see here.
Yep.
All right, so we will go optional on the announcement. And observability, though, of course, is important in a concept. So the next one is a little irony. The New York Times, who we know is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for the use of their data to train GPT-4, there's an announcement, and I think that's the only reason this is news, is because of the irony that they are announcing that they've put a team together to explore how they want to use AI. John?
Well, yeah. Well, back to our WINS framework. I mean, look, the New York did some consulting for the New York Times ages ago, and they're a smart organization. I mean, and I think they see that, as we pointed out in our article about WINS, generative AI is going to completely transform the news business, and they're trying to negotiate it in the context of their values and ethics and brand promise. To not just have robots spewing stuff out there, but to have humans do it. But they're going to have, they probably already have people using this stuff in support of the work they're doing already, and over time it's going to be more so. In terms of our AI leader, it's optional. It is ironic, but look, they're smart folks. They're going to use the best tools available, and there's no way to avoid this trend, I think.
And John, I would note this is yet another company that's in the crucible in our WINS framework that 2 years ago, hiring AI software engineers was not on a critical path. So like law firms, like some software development firms and curriculum development firms, a capability that wasn't on their radar screen is now core competency if they want to keep their business model and survival going.
Yep.
Okay, so we will go I for ironic, O for optional. Last article of the day. Well, it's not an article, and I thought this was an interesting find, actually, though, by Ankaj. So thanks for bringing this to attention. I wasn't aware of this company and did a little research after looking at this. So Petronus AI now has this service that they've put up on Hugging Face that apparently is rating various models based on what they do in terms of their use case, per se. So Amanda, I assigned this to you, hoping maybe you knew a little bit about these folks or this tool.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about them, but I just also did a little bit of digging. But I think for our audience in general, again, to your point, they look at different performance metrics across different criteria. So maybe it's like legal criteria, general writing capabilities, things like that. So I think for the developer community, this is definitely useful. So I would say for them, it's more important. But I think for our typical executive, they might want to just know the company name and know that this tool is out there to, again, benchmark against different LLMs and sort of make a decision and evaluate how good the LLM is for different tasks. But again, I feel like it's more geared towards developers at this point. So for me, on our audience, it's optional. But again, for the developer component, I could be argued into important.
And is this just open source models?
Right, that's what I was going to say. It's only open source, so
Yeah, that's what I saw too. I think so.
But it is good to actually see it in one place.
Yes, although I certainly haven't looked into the details, so you have to, ratings are ratings. You have to look at the rating and how it's made up, and is it really useful?
Well, they don't. Their whole point is they don't share how they rate it against the use cases, because then the LLMs could game the system. So
Right.
it's just a black box criteria. They're putting out a standard, and they're hoping people adopt it and listen to them in terms of benchmarking.
Yeah.
I would put it as important, guys, because this is good to know. It's in one place. If it continues, this will become essentially pseudo standard where to look for the open model performance. So this is good to know. Absolutely good to know.
Yeah, and I had looked. I'm bringing up the company page again because I had looked into them again. I hadn't heard about them. They seem to have a respectable list of folks, companies that they're working with. But we seemed a little torn here. Optional, important. Anybody want to tip it one side or the other?
One other comment, I think a lot of companies are looking to do this themselves though as well. So I'm not sure how many companies are going to use these tools. We don't really know yet, but that's just a point I want to make as well, is a lot of this is being done internal right now.
Optional for me.
Okay, we will go with optional on this one. That's our last one today. And a reminder that tomorrow we have a special guest. Connor Grennan is going to come in and rate the news with us. And we're also going to take a look at the Microsoft Future of Work report that was released in December. A number of us thought there were some interesting points in there that we'll share tomorrow. And any other announcements, Paul?
No, there's one more. We had a fabulous LinkedIn Live webinar yesterday. It's a virtual event. We had 750 people show up, and Doug Williams from MIT walked through 3 different use cases where they're using no code large language model software from custom GPT.ai. It was a great webinar, and it's still available on LinkedIn through our website. So it's a fabulous thing. The key benefits are they had a massive website. This is augmenting their website, so shortening the time to value for their end users. Secondly, it's allowing him to deliver chatbots to his customers without using his core engineers. So it's a just fabulous case, and it's something that I think we're going to start seeing tens and tens of hundreds of thousands of these no-code driven chatbots out there over the next year or so.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you tomorrow morning, same time. Bye.